Welcome, America, to AmendmentOneRadio.com, where your First Amendment rights are still safe to say what's on your mind.
Good afternoon. It's 4:30. Why do they call it rush hour? Nobody's in a rush there. My name is Catherine K. Guns. I am a firearms instructor. What kind of got me into all of this was I was working in a gun store back in 2008 and thought that I really knew it all with about 15 years of firearms experience. And then I went and acquired my concealed weapons permit and found out in 3.5 hours more than I did in the entire 15 years of knowing firearms. So that's why I think it's really, really important for those who do not have concealed weapons permits to please work on getting that. After I did that, I became inspired to become a firearms instructor. And currently, right now, I am a range officer at a gun store in Oldsmar. And man, has it been one heck of a busy week. I actually sold 6 guns yesterday in about an hour and a half. And pretty much while everybody was telling me the same response, which we'll get to in a little bit. But let's cover a few things first. A word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by sponsors and advertisers and people like you. And I wanted to thank Nolan from Talkwad Radio Network, because without him, this could not be possible. And if you want to become a sponsor or if you want to advertise, go ahead and call in at 727-493-2055. If you want to call in with any questions on any of the subjects that we cover, you could also call in that same number, which is 727-493-2055, and they'll patch you right through. So there's a couple of other people I wanted to mention today that mean a lot to me, and they're good guys. Thursday at 7 p.m., it's called Where's the Party? They let you know what's going on around town and have a really lot of cool things to talk about. Then Thursday from 6:30 to 7:30 is Voice of America with Gerald Markham. And then on Sundays from 3 p.m., Mama Bear Shares. So hopefully here in a little while, I wanted to cover some very important subjects today. 7 common mistakes of concealed carry licensing and new shooters. A little bit about the UN and the gun ban, because a lot of people have mentioned it, and I've done a little bit of research on it and found some quite shocking things. So basically what we start out with the show is, with every show that I start out, I want to teach you the basic knowledge, skills, and attitude necessary for owning and using a firearm safely. So the 7 most common mistakes of concealed carry licenses and for new shooters. There are many reasons to own a pistol: recreational shooting, competitive shooting, hunting, protection of self and family, collecting, and the exercise of our constitutional right. And there's many causes of firearm accidents which are recorded as incidents, and they fall under ignorance and carelessness. Ignorance would be the simple lack of knowledge of, and carelessness would be you had that knowledge, but you just didn't pay attention or care about it. So there's some most important things. Safe gun handling rules, which I repeat almost every time that somebody comes in to shoot at our range or when I teach a class, and it can't be said enough. Always keep your gun pointed in a safe direction. Muzzle awareness, people, in gun stores, gun shows, at the range, anywhere. Pay attention to where you're pointing that firearm. Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. I can't tell you how many purchasers or people that were looking at firearms this week didn't know the simple step called indexing, where they keep their finger off the trigger. And boy, oh boy, did I have a lot of guns pointed at me this week. Not intentionally, but that's where accidents happen. And always keep your gun unloaded until ready to use it, which basically means if your firearm is unattended, keep it unloaded. And I even got the question, well, should I separate the ammunition? Well, if you're at work, yeah, I would recommend separating the ammunition from the firearm until you got home, or whatever the case may be, because it makes it easier for the person that broke into your house if they have any ammunition by the gun. Always know what's beyond your target as well. For you newbies out there, ball ammunition is not recommended for self-defense. It's great for plinking paper, but ball ammunition is designed to go through and through. Hollow point is your self-defense round of choice, and it's designed to stop upon impact. So these things you should actually know, and most firearms dealers and safety instructors will be able to guide you along the way. Always avoid those that don't pay attention to those gun safety rules. If they're not checking the chamber before they hand the firearm over to you and they're not aware of muzzle awareness, then perhaps that's not the correct person to be hanging out with. All right, so there's a couple of product safety recalls out there. I called one out a few weeks ago. One of them is the Walther PK380, and it's set between a certain number of serial numbers where the safety mechanism has failed. As I always teach any of my students anyways, you never depend on that safety mechanism because it is a mechanical device that can fail, and you are your own safety. So there's a recall for that. And also then there's another recall for Remington 338 Lapua Magnums. There's a couple of specific ones. And what they basically are saying is do not use Remington 338 Lapua Magnum 250 grain Senior match ammunition. Lots numbers, and I'll list off a few of them, which is L13SA29L, L13SA29R, L13, and hello, Gerald Markham. We'll have to go back and repeat this. This is my guest who often sits with me in all of my shows. Gerald Markham does Voice of America. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
You get caught in rush hour?
Oh my God, traffic is brutal out there.
I know. I said, why is anybody in a rush?
Yeah, really ain't nothing good happening.
Well, we're going to cover, to bring you up to speed, a few really interesting subjects today, and hopefully, as with all the shows, I never quite get through all of them. It always seems to be a to be continued, but we're going to cover the 7 most common mistakes of concealed carry licenses, basically some of the most common mistakes, and then firearm safety. I'm right now covering product safety recalls, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the UN.
Yeah. There's a lot of recalls, aren't there?
A couple of them.
Like every week there's a new recall.
So it seems. It's not always in the firearms industry, but you're dealing with something that can potentially be extremely dangerous, so that's why they're doing it.
Too bad we can't recall generals.
Oh, that was a hard punch. I say, boy, America just has their different views on different things.
Yeah, especially typical guy.
Yeah, I know.
Always thinking the wrong thoughts.
Oh, well, I think, well, I can understand it for 2 reasons, and I would love to share my opinion on it, but I'm fearing that my viewers might not agree with me on it. But I really honestly think their personal life isn't none of your business, but I understand where they felt that it was a breach of security. So that sucks.
Well, I mean, that's, the bad thing about it is they've proved that it is a breach of security because the girls have top secret information.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. So what they do in their private life is great, but ain't supposed to be kissing and telling.
Yeah, and they knew of the consequences because I had this debate last night with a friend of mine, and it actually can land your butt in jail on adultery. They don't smile on that too lightly. And then I thought, it's a general, so can't they let him slide because he's done such good stuff? And they were like, no, they're gonna hang him.
Yeah, he's gonna be sitting in Leavenworth.
Yeah. So back to the product safety recall. If you want to learn any more, I don't know. Are you going to talk about that later on in your show or nah?
I'm sure I'm gonna have a little fun with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Make it interesting.
Oh wow. So the 2 product safety recalls would be that Walther PK380 and then the Remington 338 Lapua Magnum and the Senior match ammunitions with the lot numbers L13SA29L, L13SA29R, L13SB29L, or L13SBR29R. So if you guys have any of that ammunition, they're saying please do not use and to contact Remington right away. And Remington's phone number there for the customer service department is 1-800-243-9700, and then they're suggesting to hit prompt number 3. So that'll refer to that problem there. Yeah. So if anybody wants to call into our studio, the phone number, and I know because there's a couple of friends that said they were going to attempt to, which would be kind of cool, but so I'm going to throw that number out again and grab a pen and paper so that you can actually make it, which is 727-493-2055. So what we're going to touch into is we're right where we left off last week, which was a little bit on the first subject, and then I just marked right where we left off, so they should flow pretty smooth. Every training repetition you do builds and reinforces this particular technique of muscle memory for each unique action. And basically what they're talking about is practicing at the range over and over and over. That's indexing, firearm safety, muzzle awareness. Speed comes later.
Mm-hmm.
So you do it repetitiously over and over again, firearm safety, and then you're able to perform under pressure, I guess would be the correct terminology, or
Yeah.
when the adrenaline's pumping, because you won't be thinking.
Yep, definitely. Because I
Yep.
mean, it ain't like you can go to a shooting range and become, a quick draw McGraw in about one lesson. So,
Oh no. And I've
mm-hmm.
seen some pretty crazy stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
remember probably about 2 or 3 years ago. Actually, when I was actually qualifying to be an NRA instructor. Now I remember the date that was. I was nervous as heck. But there was a lady that came into the range. She actually had on the old cowboy holsters, and I don't believe that she had it on when she walked into the range, because if they'd have saw that, they would have thrown her out. But somehow between, she slipped past them and put the holster, and actually was attempting to holster draw, and had put balloons on the targets and sent them downrange. Of course, she was wielding wildly with her firearms and pointing at everybody, and holy shnikes, what a great day to start out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely get
Yeah.
you going. That adrenaline.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. See, people, what they don't realize out there is that falls under ignorance or carelessness. It's either or. And the law doesn't necessarily interpret whether I'm to determine if that firearm is unloaded or not. So if if I feel my life is in danger, I will protect myself. Good thing I am even and calm and mild mannered.
Mm-hmm. And definitely when you're running that situation and somebody's slinging a gun around, you always got to remember about those double D's.
Yeah.
Yeah, duck and dive.
Yes. So, what they're basically to cover this subject, it was also written by a colonel that was on a website that I had found, and I wanted to give him credit about that. Let me see if I can find his name at the end of my
He,
subject here.
he's not involved in any of that stuff, is he?
No, not that I know of. He's since retired and has became a firearms instructor. And he
Mm-hmm.
actually teaches up in North Florida. So, if anybody ever wants to be taught by him. He's a really awesome firearms instructor. For some reason, I don't have his name on here anymore, but the credits go from the show prior to. But
It's in there somewhere.
yeah, just about any firearms instructor that's certified through the NRA, to me, is pretty decent.
Yeah.
So every training repetition you do builds on this reinforces a particular technique of muscle memory for each unique action. When a technique or movement is repeated over time, a long-term muscle memory is created for that task, eventually allowing it to be performed without a conscious effort. This process decreases the need for attention and creates the maximum efficiency within the motor and memory system. So examples of muscle memory are found in many everyday activities that become automatic and improve with practice, such as riding a bicycle, dancing the waltz, or typing on the keyboard. However, if the training drills and repetitions you do in training are incorrect, you will train this poor technique or incorrect fundamental into a subconscious memory. Fine example. I've got a father and son that come into the range, and I actually pulled the son aside and had to explain to him the proper grip of a firearm, which people, for those that do not know out there, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but my hand is sitting in a V grip. See it right there. That's where you put that right underneath the beaver tail or the back strap of the firearm, and you choke up on it. Then you have your shooting finger alongside the frame of the firearm, and then the 3 remaining fingers underneath the trigger guard. Then you take your 4, that's your 4 fingers right here, and you wrap them on top of the 3. You take your palm and you fill in the gap, and then you stack your thumbs. So it's called a thumb stacking. And that's how you grip a semi-automatic correctly. If it's a revolver, they do what they call a thumb lock. If you ever have any questions about that, any person in a gun store or a firearms instructor will be able to clearly show you how to do that. The other thing that scared the pants out of me was, for some reason or another, this unnecessary movement. And I've seen it in more than one occasion, but this father was teaching his son to point the gun up straight up in the air and then drop it down. Well, that's an unnecessary movement. I don't understand the purposes of it, and it can actually cause accidental pulling of the trigger of your firearm because the kid was not indexing. So extremely dangerous, and most people in gun stores and gun ranges, if they see that kind of behavior, usually it results in getting thrown out. So I'm trying to work with this kid who is like 9 years old. And I can't teach the father. There's just no way. He's stuck in his old ways, and I tried to pull the kid aside, say, hey, that's an unnecessary movement. I didn't necessarily strike it as being bad, although it is. So he wouldn't insult his father. I say it's unnecessary movement. If you want to be a competition shooter, skip that step.
Mm-hmm.
So that I have run across a lot of crazy things.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So, alrighty. So, however, if the training and the drills and the repetitions you are doing are incorrect, this will train poor technique and incorrect fundamentals into your subconscious memory. So, when you need the skill in the future, critical life or death situation, for example, where you were under stress or you must react quickly as you have been trained, your brain will draw from what it knows and from your muscle memory. So if you have trained with the incorrect fundamentals of poor or with a poor technique, you will automatically and subconsciously perform that improperly. So you don't know what you don't know. Your training drills and techniques should be planned with specific goals and purposes and prioritized based on the results of what you want to achieve in your various scenarios. So simply putting the rounds down range and hoping that learning the right skills is a waste of your effort and resources. You have to understand why you're doing it,
Yep.
unless you just enjoy plinking paper. So the first thing is, what is the purpose behind all of what you're doing?
Yep.
And learn those techniques.
Oh, without doubt. Could you imagine a little kid sitting there, somebody breaks into his house and he's holding a gun up, he shoots it, shoots Granny upstairs, knocks her off.
Yeah,
And then it's like by the time he gets ready to shoot the poor guy, that's breaking in, hell, he done killed the Granny, killed the old man. And so, it's like the other guy's like, hey, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, but I'm sure that there's probably something similar to that event happening. Hopefully nobody died in it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure, because wild rounds go everywhere if you're not in control of your firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So simply putting rounds down range and hoping that you're learning the right skills are a waste of time and effort and resources. And I 100% believe that. Ammunition isn't cheap.
Nope.
No, and it's only going to get more expensive from here. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So to correct this, plan by listing the skills and techniques that you will likely need in a specific situation and prioritize them. Then develop the same unique training drills that will work on each of those skills and strictly use them during your training sessions. So that would be the first common mistake, is just not understanding the purpose or why and then creating muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say probably, not respecting what you're doing. I mean, if you get out there with the wrong mindset and wrong, just attitude with it, it's just like, you're bound to make some kind of mistake that, could cost somebody their life.
Yeah. Well, I think what people are most commonly doing with that is it's like a fuzzy brain. They're
Yeah.
doing it, going through the motions, but they're not understanding why. And
Nope. That's a fact.
yeah, it's shocking. Yep. And then the other thing that happened to me, and I kind of got to laugh about this. Remember when we talked about earlier, concealed weapons permits, when you're acquiring them, they were a great responsibility. They uphold you to a higher standard. So you are supposed to be calm, cool, and collected no matter what.
Yeah.
So I had a lady come in the range, and she was pissed. And I mean, really mad, yelling at me because I could not give her 2 lanes. And I said, well, let me see here. You're angry and yelling. You're not going to the range at all. Have a nice day. I'm not going to let you hold a gun while you're mad at me.
Yeah. Like, here, I got 2 hands. I can shoot
and then I got
both angles.
That's right. And well, then I got a range full of other people. So why would I endanger them people too? Because you're not in control of your temper.
Yeah.
So
That's a fact.
and whether she doesn't like me or not, I felt that I protected 12 other people in that range and myself as well, So
Definitely a good call.
yeah, I think so. I just get shocked at people's behavior. I really do. I just wow, it never ceases to amaze me.
Nah, stupidity runs rampant around America nowadays.
So then you can wonder why those gun activists are so dead set again. There are some incidences that go on their side of reasoning, and I can understand it. So you know what? Why don't we become the more responsible people and show that great responsibility of being calm, cool, and collected?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a confidence piece. It doesn't make me James Bond.
That's right. Because if you ain't Rambo, you ain't calm, cool, and collective,
That's right.
Yeah,
In fact,
blow the whole
that
neighborhood up.
That movie was based on anger. He was very angry. Revenge.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if he would have been carrying M50, walking into a coffee shop and sit down, have a latte, and say, "Hey, I'm cool, I'm collective."
Yeah. Crazy, crazy. So, according to Colonel's here, he's got seven other mistakes to correct, and I really liked what he had to say. So, on mistakes number two, initially not getting the sufficient fundamentals, classroom and range live fire training. This mistake will get you and your family members killed. Even if you don't take the Florida concealed weapons carries weapons permit license training from me, please do not do your research and avoid the abbreviated one round fire at a gun show. And I can't stress that enough. I agree with him 100% because one shot doesn't confirm that you know what you're doing. It doesn't put you through the motions to understand why. And then, of
Hmm.
course, then they cram all of this down on you in 30 minutes or so, and they expect you to obtain at least 10% of it. And just no, you know, even if
Hmm.
you're doing it just for the cost effectiveness of it, um, continue to research and pay for those one-on-one classes, or just don't rely on that. You
Yeah,
know,
because I mean, how much does one of those classes cost? What, 35, $50 or something like that?
at a gun show. Now,
Yeah.
come on. Now, a good firearms instructor that'll spend 3.5, 5 hours, 8 hours with you, they're not charging that much more.
No, because I mean, yeah,
$85, 150. That's really not that much more considering the invaluable knowledge they give you.
yeah,
I
yeah.
learned more in that 3.5 hour course than I did in 15 years of handling firearms.
I
And
wonder if there's anybody out there that are training people with BB guns.
they're actually I've gotten into that argument a couple of times with a few firearms instructors that feel that that would be the best way to train because they don't want to go to the gun range and they're trying to be cost effective.
Being a cheapskate and watching somebody get killed later on down the road, then guess whose ass it is?
Yeah,
It's that instructor's.
I would hope so, and I
Yeah.
honestly would because the whole part of qualifying at the gun range is to make sure that they can handle that firearm safely. They're able to acquire their target,
Hmm.
understand recoil, understand how the firearm functions, knowing what's beyond their target, the whole nine. I even simulate firearm malfunctions so they know what to do if their firearm were to malfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how many people out there know what a squib load is? Do you know what a squib load is?
Yep. Non-fired.
Actually, I hate to
Well, it
to
is
bust your
fired,
butt.
but
Yeah,
yeah, it didn't fire.
more than likely the round.
Hmm.
Okay, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. More than likely the round is lodged in the bore,
Hmm.
or it's like the cartoon where it ends up, on the ground in slow motion. Yeah, it drops out the end of the barrel.
Yeah.
Um, so if you choose to fire your firearm after that, now you have a double feed, or a
Hmm.
round coming in behind another round, which could cause your firearm to blow up and cause serious bodily injury.
Heck, you got two hands. So what you lose one, you still got one to pick your nose with.
Yeah, it's sad, but that does happen, and the signs for that when you guys ever encounter a squiblow, do not fire your firearm. Please go get a range officer, or have a gunsmith look at it, or if you're not 100% sure it's actually occurred, run a bore snake down the barrel. If the
Hmm.
bore snake doesn't go through the barrel, you've got something lodged in your bore, and
Yeah.
then it's gunsmith time.
Yeah, because other than that,
Yeah.
I mean, take your clip out, and just make sure that at least that way, you ain't got nothing in there, even if it's a revolver.
Oh,
Pop the cylinder out, and
it's
just
the
take your
first thing
shells
you
out.
do, and that's another thing,
Yeah.
and I take it for granted sometimes, and I have to be aware that most people really do not know how to clear their own firearm, whether
No.
whatever mishap it may be. It may be a misfire, a hang fire, or a squib load. The first thing you guys do, for basic beginners, which we teach, is to wait and hold the firearm downrange for 30 seconds. Now, in a self defense situation, obviously you can't do that, but remember, you do this training in steps so that you understand why. Speed comes later. So
Yeah.
you hold the firearm downrange for 30 seconds because right now you're just learning how a firearm functions. Okay,
Hmm.
then you drop the magazine, and for a semi automatic, you drop the magazine and you rack the slide back, and then you clear your round that way. So you always drop the mag first.
Yeah.
Okay, and for a revolver, you push the cylinder release latch and tip the cylinder out, and then push the ejector rod and take the rounds out of the firearm.
Hmm.
Pretty,
A lot of common sense goes a long ways.
it does.
As long as you respect the gun to where you know that it's not the gun that kills the people, it's the people behind the gun that pull the trigger.
And it's your responsibility as a firearms owner
Yeah.
to understand the mechanics and how that firearm functions. It's your
Mhm.
responsibility.
Yep.
Yep. So, so these one round fire at the gun show are 45-minute quickie courses. That's on you. I mean, you can't put a price tag on life, and that's what you're dealing with. You
Yeah.
know, so
Well, it's almost like going in there saying, "Okay, hey, look, I'm gonna give you a CDL license. We're gonna put you in a tractor trailer one time, let you take a trip around the interstate there, and then, hey, you got your license? Go ahead. You got 96,000 pounds that you're gonna go kill half a neighborhood with."
yeah. And by the
But
way, you can drive the gas tanker truck.
yeah.
Yeah, sure, no problem. you know, I mean, people just take it for granted. They really do.
Mhm.
So you are harming yourself by getting yourself a minimum training, and this overlooks several fundamentals that improved your techniques necessary to protect your life and your loved ones. So frequently, there are minimum range hands-on firing with personal guidance or private customized instruction to improve your current skill set. Not everybody knows, and you can easily be taught the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
So it's up to you guys. So customized instruction to improve your current skill sets. Also, just because 5 years ago or so you received a solid basics course, techniques or methods to improve and change, so you can learn something by attending new fundamental courses, which means anybody that you know took instruction in the past, education's invaluable and it changes all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you always learn. There's never
Yeah.
a day that you don't learn in your life until the day you die.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That is a quote unquote one of the most beautiful statements. We learn until
Mhm.
we die.
Yep.
Yep.
For those who don't think you do, that's why they call them politicians.
Oh, wow. Okay, so mistake number 3, not regularly getting refresher firearms fundamentals training and legal updates for your state of residence. Um, Laws change all the time. It's up
Mhm.
to you as a concealed carry, carrier or any possession of a firearm. It's up to you to understand what's current out there. So the
Mhm.
training you get for a concealed carry license usually is minimal, non-personalized because it's in large classes, and it's not in depth enough to effectively train you. Listen, just because we're certified firearms instructors doesn't mean we're lawyers. So we're only
Mhm.
teaching you what we know at that point in time. And it's not required in the state of Florida to teach Florida law.
Yeah.
We don't have to. And a lot of instructors actually avoid it. The NRA First Steps doesn't even teach Florida law. They want to teach you firearm safety, which I get it.
Yep.
And I think it's great to do it that way because it's up to you to educate yourself on what's going on in current laws. And that would be under chapters 470s. So that's the manual you get when you take your class. So the training you get for your concealed carry license is usually minimal. It is non-personalized in large classes and not in depth enough to effectively train you to defend yourself or your family in critical situations. You need to regularly seek out additional one-on-one training from a qualified instructors in a classroom or on the range, and then practice and practice and practice again the fundamentals they teach you on your own in or with a shooting buddy. This is true. Just as you exercise to maintain your health, consider that it is very minimum. Most police officers have to qualify with their firearms once or twice a year. Also, firearms and concealed carry laws change, and the improved techniques and philosophies emerge. They do. They change it all the time. So
Mhm.
I heard the door thump.
Oh,
I thought somebody
that's my
was
chair
coming in.
squeaking.
That was your chair.
Mhm.
So, this is what he personally wrote in here. So, I believe you should practice the fundamentals of shooting for your accuracy with your holster. Guys, if you're carrying concealed, has anybody learned how to draw out of their holster safely? It's shocking how many people carry concealed that do not know how to do that.
Well, mine's a little bit hard. I got a 44 with a 7.5-inch barrel that has a shoulder harness that goes right up underneath my arm. So it's just like the bad part about it is I've got to pull it out like this to shoot.
How many times have you practiced doing that?
Actually, quite a bit.
You do? Well, I'm proud of you because not many people actually do that.
Yeah,
And
either that or I turn sideways and shoot underneath the arm.
well, there you go. You've thought of both angles.
It depends on who's got the bigger gun, me or him.
And one of the most common mistakes with holster drawing is they end up shooting their own self, either on pulling the firearm out because their finger lands on the trigger,
Mm-hmm.
or reholstering where they failed to take their finger off the trigger before they holstered it.
Yep.
And we have YouTube videos of it. Even in law enforcement, you've seen
Yeah.
it. You remember, everybody remembers that one cop that said, "I'm a professional," and he shot himself in
So
front of the
foot.
classroom full of students. So, um,
Mhm.
so I believe that you should practice fundamentals of shooting for accuracy with your holster, your gear, and accessories once a month, or at least 8 times a year, and attend at least one firearms training course per year if possible. Don't take a chance on missing or forgetting proper techniques and relearning bad habits. Some think because they were raised with a gun, shot tin cans, and went squirrel hunting a lot, that they have already been the best firearms knowledge and techniques. How many shows have I done already that said I learned more in that 3.5 hour course than I did in 15 years? You know,
Mhm.
it couldn't be, I couldn't agree with this man more, you know?
Yeah.
So you learn that proper pistol grip, that proper body stance, the sight alignment, the sight picture, the trigger, breathe and hold controls, and follow through techniques. They should be learned and committed to muscle memory from a certified instructor who has updated methods and improved basics without the need to think about what needs to be done. This may mean unlearning some bad techniques and learning proper ones. I just learned not more than 2 months ago when shooting, there's a difference between shooting competition and shooting self defense.
Mhm.
Okay. Most self defense firearms are designed for 7 yards, and then competition shooting goes well beyond 7 yards. I was shooting competition with my elbow dropped in a retained position because that's my self defense position. But that's not for competition. They actually lock out.
Yeah.
And when I started to learn to lock out, I was still dropping my elbow. It's actually wrong. You should
Mhm.
be boxed and straight out so that you're able to competition shoot. That's why these things, you need to know what the purpose is that you're doing, understanding why. So it actually improved my skills quite a bit. It went from a nice 8-inch pattern to about a 3-inch pattern.
Yeah.
And I teach the people at the range all the time that, and they're like shocked and amazed. And it's just a simple little technique. So that so the follow through is also really important too. A lot of people will yank the gun after they fired it, and believe it or not, you may actually affect it. That follow through means that you hold it out there until
Mhm.
it has acquired its target, because you can affect it if you yank too early on the firearm. It can drop the ammunition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it depends on the gun too.
yeah,
Yeah, if you pull the trigger on mine, let me tell you something. You ain't got to worry about yanking nothing. It does all its own.
right. So, um, so this comes with the practice, 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 and more practice. Um, Lives may depend on your accuracy, current knowledge, and refined techniques. It's a changing world out there day by day, so you need to know these things, especially what's beyond your target.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
So I guess that means you can't go around shooting in somebody's wooden house and not expecting to hit the neighbor behind them. Then.
Oh yeah, and I mentioned it before you got in, the difference between ball ammunition and hollow point. Hollow
Mm.
point is your defense round, and yes, it's expensive. It's about $1 a round, but you can't put a price tag on life. And
Mhm.
hollow point is designed to stop upon impact. The media often gets it wrong when they say, "Ooh, he used hollow point." That's what it's for, is self
Yeah.
defense. Ball ammunition will go through and through, and I can't tell you how many people come to the range with their magazines already loaded with ball ammunition, and I only hope and pray that they did that because they're going to the range. But
Yeah.
then I see them leave with the ball ammunition still in their magazine for self defense. And then, I try to, guide them without insulting them the best way that I can, that, hey, you need to think about hollow points, you know.
Yep. Definitely.
So, um, so mistake number 4, he's written, not regularly practicing. So he stressed this again, and there's a good reason for it. So shooting fundamentals and skills are perishable, and they deteriorate if not practiced. So you must practice on a regular basis. And although dry fire practice drills are useful, there is no substitute for live fire, and that's the truth.
Yep.
It's the truth. You can't simulate that recoil without live fire, and amongst many other situations. Um, Perhaps you might encounter in live fire a malfunction. You need to know how to correct that quickly. For more advanced or more educated people, because remember, this is all a step by step process. First, we teach you about if you have a misfire or a hang fire, to hold the firearm downrange for 30 seconds because you can't determine the two. In more advanced classes, like if you take a Class D or G class for armed or unarmed security guards, they teach you a technique called tap and rack,
Yeah.
which is more quicker, but that comes later with practicing. And then instead of waiting for 30 seconds, you tap the magazine to make sure that the magazine was actually fully into the firearm. And then you rack, which you exit the next round that's in there, whether it's malfunctioned in one way or another. And you do that process fairly quickly. Um,
Yep.
but you still take that chance. If it's a slow burner or a hang fire, you could get injured.
Yep.
So
More likely dead.
yeah, so that's why they take it step by step so that you're
Hmm.
able to realize how to handle the situation quickly.
Hmm.
So, although dry fire practice drills are useful, there is no substitute for live fire. So you can run dry practice drills to practice presenting your handgun or aligning your sights, getting your firearm on target, exercising your trigger and press and reset, and performing emergency reloads, tactical reloads, and malfunctions clearances. It's so funny. I just was basically covering that.
Yeah.
So, however, dry fire practices do not give you the experience of controlling your trigger or your firearm under recoil. So, if you cannot devote some time on a regular basis to shooting practices, your shooting skills and performance under the stress of deadly force encounter will suffer. So, unfortunately, your deadly force encounter and shooting skills do not increase under the stress of pumping adrenaline. Kind of like what he had to say there, you may drop your firearm, you may not be able to put the magazine into the firearm, you might forget to rack it, you might forget to take the safety off.
Hmm.
These are things that you got to create memory on.
Oh, definitely. Because once your adrenaline gets going, if you're in a bad situation, you better know what you're doing.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't tell you, on just a minor note, it's not even adrenaline. People get nervous around me because they
Yeah.
know I'm a firearms instructor, and same as me, I get nervous around people that are a higher rank than I am, NRA sponsors and people that are watching me, or I get nervous. So this happens to everybody. They get nervous, and I fumble.
Yep.
Can you imagine how bad I would fumble in a high stress situation like that if I didn't train?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be rough.
yeah. So at that point, I would hopefully have a high point in my hand, and I would just throw it at them. A big heavy gun. Some people will get that out there anyways. So, our shooting skills and accuracy during real life encounters do not come close to our worst day of accurate shooting at the range. It actually decreases. So your body is going to dump a massive amounts of adrenaline into your bloodstream, which will make you temporarily stronger and faster, but it adversely affects the motor coordination, such as your ability to focus on the front sight and press the trigger without disrupting the sight alignment. As a result, you will tend to be about half as good as a real encounter at your best range day. So regular practice definitely helps. Aim for a monthly range shooting sessions, but try to get there every 7 to 8 weeks at minimum, certainly not once a year.
Yeah.
Fine example, the gangsters on the streets. I've asked several different cops, how does that generally turn out? Believe it or not, uh, most of the time 30 rounds will go off and nobody is hit because they don't practice, but they do shoot. And, it's, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most innocent bystanders end up dying from that because
No.
they're not paying attention to be on their target, although they're not paying attention to anything. But,
Yep.
so.
That's why I kind of like the handgun that I selected.
Yeah.
I say, hey, at least if it doesn't hit you, which I will, the sound from the neighborhood and the echo that it's going to go, it'll definitely make you think twice about trying to do something dumber, like turn back around.
I think hopefully you would even have to discharge that firearm, just the sheer look of it. Just
Yeah.
wait a second. This might take a few seconds to pull out, but hold
Yeah.
on, I got something for you.
Yeah, it's like that old movie Heat with Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood. He says there, it says, yeah, he says, check out my gun. And Clint Eastwood pulls that one out. It's about 3 foot long and says, yeah, mine's bigger.
You think that's an ego issue? Oh my God. So, common mistake number 5, selecting and buying the wrong firearm. The first thing any gun dealer should ask you if you want to buy a gun is, what is the purpose? Are you concealed carrying? Is it home defense? Is it some other purpose for shooting at the range, practice competition? There's many reasons to own a firearm. Let's say fine example, and I hate to break it down in such a simple manner, but think about this for a second. A hunter walks into the store and says, "I need a gun." Well, how do you know what kind of gun he needs? Is he hog hunting, fish, bird hunting, deer hunting?
People hunting, politician
I can't
hunting.
believe you just said that. Oh my God. We do not hunt people, okay?
Paintballs, you do.
So selecting and buying, you could actually end up buying the wrong firearm. I even had a customer ask me this week, out of all the firearms that I've owned in the past, which one did I regret the most, and which one did I miss the most? The one I regretted the most actually was a firearm that actually did not fit my hand. It was an ultralight revolver. 2-inch barrel, and it's very common. Most people do buy them. It's like a fine example of one. I'm not knocking it because it's a great firearm. Okay, made by Smith and Wesson. It's an ultralight.
Mm-hmm.
Great gun, but no fun shooting at the range. After several practice sessions, I end up with a bruise right up my hand because of the recoil is so massive. And then if you're a newbie shooter or somebody maybe that's a little older trying to learn how to shoot a gun like that, it actually can scare the beheebies out of them and they may never want to shoot again.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't buy the wrong firearm and please don't buy it because it's pretty. Okay.
I've heard that so many times,
I
especially with
know.
all these nice little 380s that you see at the gun show. It's got glitter, it's got pink or blue or white or little murals on it. And
Ah,
everybody says, "Oh, that's so pretty." And then it's like, next thing you know, it's sad to say, but there are chicks out there that's got big hands. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go out here and shoot my 380. And they forget the fingers are covering the barrel.
oh my God. Yeah.
So,
You're not a kid. And I agree with you on that. And I can't tell you how many grown men have shot a 380 and almost dropped the gun because they were shocked on the recoil of it. Make no mistake, a 380 can go through a refrigerator door. Yes, it lacks
mm-hmm.
the stopping power, okay? But
It's still a gun.
it's still a gun,
Yeah.
okay? Because you've got your gun dealers that will easily say that you need at least 9 millimeter and up for stopping power because most of the villains and the bad guys are hiked up on drugs. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
a 380 won't kill, and a
Yeah.
well placed shot will definitely stop the threat, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have gotten this 380 as a backup firearm and conceal carry, and they're just shocked on how wicked the round honestly is. There's a flame that comes out a good 5 inches from the firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
make
they're
no
neat little
mistake,
guns. Well,
it's
that's,
shocking.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I mean, it's like me, I myself, I like bigger guns.
yeah,
And it's just like, but also I always go in there and check and see what I want to do, which guns I want to get or something like that.
yeah.
I mean, because I wanted a 50 caliber and the handgun, but the problem is that the ones I were looking at, after so many shots, the barrels were cracking
Oh
because,
wow.
yeah, because they're not tempered right. And it's just,
Okay, or
you said,
maybe perhaps they were shooting a plus P or a plus P plus in it, which
hmm
Um, it's like Tim the Toolman Taylor. It's more power, more pressure. Yes,
no,
it's for better ballistics, but it's not meant to shoot constantly in your firearm. I mean, it will
nope,
blow it apart, crack it,
no, because
it
that's
will
what.
weaken your system.
Yeah, because I think,
Mhm.
I'm not sure, but, I know that there was a couple gun ranges, in Tampa that, actually used them, and they was getting a lot of people that wanted to shoot them because, it was the big boy on the block there. But the problem is after so many times, they started having problems with them, and they started seeing all the stress cracks that were going in the barrels.
Wow.
So, yeah, they quit carrying them. They
Yeah.
don't, they don't shoot them no more.
Not only that, the round is really expensive. That's a 50 AE, which AE stands for Action Express.
Yeah, 'cause I
So,
think at that
mhm.
time, I think they were like 850 a round or something like that. Because I mean, they were expensive.
Yeah, yeah, they're not
So,
cheap to shoot. No,
yeah,
not by any means.
yeah.
So, selecting and buying the wrong firearm. Many new shooters with concealed carry licenses hurry to buy a large caliber or a full size handgun for concealed carry without thinking of the purposes, criteria, and lifestyle. If you're carrying concealed, you do want that small gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, and I always recommend try it before you buy it. Go to a gun range, rent the firearm before you actually purchase it so that you're not falling into that category of buying a gun that you regret because you might try to list it as like new or new, and it's not. Once a
Mm-hmm.
firearm is transferred and you fill out that 4473, it is no longer new. It has a
Nope.
paper trail.
Yep.
So Yeah, I've gotten so many people that have argued with me in the store. Oh, I just walked out the door with it. It's still new. I didn't fire it. No, there's a
Hmm.
paper trail now. And I can't reverse that. That's a government document. So
Yep.
so all I can do now is list it like new, and the most of the time, most gun stores will not buy it back for the price that you bought it for.
Nope.
So because now it's used, it has a paper trail on it. And so they
Hmm.
will buy it for about 50 to 25% less under wholesale of
Hmm.
its value, because wholesale would be for a new gun, but this is no longer a new gun.
Yep.
So, and then they get insulted with the price and then they get all mad. To solve this whole nightmare effect, rent the gun before you buy it.
Yep.
Yep,
That's the best way to go.
that's right. Or if your friend has one, try it out.
Yeah, I had friends of mine that had really neat guns that I
Yeah,
liked shooting, years and years ago.
yeah.
I mean, the neatest thing I ever shot was, let's see, it was a double barrel 12 gauge with a handle and a barrel about 18 inches long. So
Quite a kicker, huh?
you actually had to put your hand on top of the back of the barrel when you fired it, because if not, and you didn't have the grip to hold it, it would split your hand right there about an inch in. That where you go get
Oh,
stitches.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wicked. Yeah. So
made a nice pattern though. What was
that
left of the
reminds me of the
tree?
very first gun I ever shot. Two of them. The first gun I was trained on was a 45, which was a 1911. And I was a newbie shooter, so I had no idea what I was doing. The 1911 scared the fire out of me. That is quite a firearm. And if you've never shot, whew. And then they were laughing, saying, well, once you shoot this, you can shoot anything, which I understand the point, but it scared me. And had I not been as tough and as gun ho, shall we say, I
Mm-hmm.
probably would have ended my shooting career right there.
Yeah,
And then the other one was a rifle, which was a 30-06, and I got cut by the scope.
those are nice. I like those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great gun, but they were all snickering because they knew what was about to happen. I was in the prone position, and my eye was way too close to that scope, and
Mm-hmm.
ooh, man, that hurt.
It's like, yeah, had a nice black eye, huh?
Yeah, right. So, so most concealed carry people, they buy the wrong firearm. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a full size firearm. It's just really difficult to conceal. But here's the thing. These days, the holsters are so advanced that you can actually change the canter of the firearm, because you got to remember what you're concealing is technically the grip of the firearm. Okay, because once it goes down your pants, it's pretty deflected on trying to determine what it is. So if you change the canter on the grip of the firearm and you tilt it back more, you're not going to be able to tell that that's a pistol.
Yeah. Boy,
So
puts a whole new meaning to, hey, is that a gun in your pocket, or are you happy to see
you're
me?
just happy to see me, right? Yeah. So without thinking for the purpose, criteria, and lifestyle, while large caliber big guns can be concealed with some considerations and trade-offs, shooters may find themselves that are too heavy, oversized, and hold too few rounds, which too much recoil for them to be consistently accurate and safe. So there goes that 41 you're carrying. Most people
Uh-huh.
actually cannot handle that type of firearm. So, and honestly, I do personally carry a firearm that is rather heavy, and my back aches because of it. But I
Mhm.
really like that gun, and I'm a very good shot with it. So,
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I do sacrifice one for the other.
Uh-huh.
So, what ends up happening for the newbies is they end up not carrying it because it's too big and bulky and causes that backache, and then
And they
everything they
leave it
just
at
went
home,
through
get
just kind
mugged.
of got wasted. Yeah. So. So many fall victim to a slick sales pitch by a salesperson at a gun show or a store who seems to think that bigger is always better. That is not true. But I am going to tell you, in my personal opinion, um, that lighter is not always better either
Nope.
because of the recoil. So if
Mhm.
you are a new shooter, try them before you buy them so that you learn that recoil. Because that airweight firearm that I bought, great to carry because it's light, presents massive recoil. But when
Mhm.
your adrenaline is pumping, you will be able to handle that if you've created the muscle memory.
Yeah.
But my favorite gun to shoot, if it's a revolver, is actually the Smith & Wesson 686 with a 4 to 6 inch barrel, because it's fun to shoot, less recoil, and that teaches me the mechanics of the firearm.
Mhm.
So, and they're very similar, just one smaller than the other.
Yeah, of course, and again, on the fun factor of it, it would be kinda like, I would have to say, bigger would be better, because if you had your choice to shoot a little 22 at a 50-yard range, or if you had a chance to shoot a 50 caliber at 1,000-yard range, now which one do you think you're going to shoot?
Well, you know what I'm going to want to shoot. That's the 50 BMG. That's my favorite gun. But for a newbie, that might traumatize them. I think that's the point that he's trying to get across.
Yeah.
You know, because basically what he's talking about is the 7 most common mistakes for newbies. Okay. But
Yeah, it's like, yeah, whatever you do, if you're shooting a BMG out on a range and it's got a nice big scope, do not hold your eye behind it within about like 10 inches.
right?
Yeah, if you want to look real close and go for that inch, you know,
That'd be some
have a
permanent
good
socket
doctor.
damage.
While your eyeball's still stuck to the, the
Yeah,
scope
right? The
there.
scope is embedded in my eyeball.
It's like, wow, I can see real good out of this eye.
So don't let others influence you, or their range buddy who knows and works for him try to get you to select and buy a gun or a caliber that he uses. Other than then he can share his personal opinion with you, but don't let that totally affect you, because everybody's different. I have really small hands. So I'm limited to a certain number of firearms for accuracy. So you need to find out. Oh yeah, I'm serious. I got tiny hands.
Yeah, you got
So
little kid hands.
yeah. So
Okay.
when I grip a firearm, the way you know a firearm actually fits is to your middle finger and your thumb should touch when you wrap around the grip. And that firearm, if you can touch, then that means that gun is ideal for you. Obviously, if it's an overwrap where the finger and the thumb go way past, then the gun is too small for you. And so both can affect your accuracy in shooting.
Yeah, thank God I ain't got that problem, you know.
Yeah. And then you got to deal with recoil. If you're scared of the gun, you're not going to shoot it well. You're just not. So so don't get influenced by other people. Learn for yourself. Find out what works best for you. Selecting a firearm is a very personal, subjective process based on individual preferences, purposes, goals, and priorities, criteria, and use other resources. There is no one best firearm or caliber. Try before you buy. Remember, accuracy is more important than the equipment. I can't express that enough either, you know?
I agree to a certain point. I mean, but with me, as far as guns and being, kind of like an egomaniac, on that kind of stuff, it's just like you can go out and have some fun, but also at the same time, I want something to where when this thing gets pulled out, it's like everybody's going to sit there and say, wow. And it's just like, you can actually shoot this thing. And it's like, yes, I can. I do
love
have
that.
the
I
arms,
love that ego. I honestly do.
And,
And see, that's a different situation. That's not
Yeah.
for self-defense. I'm at the range and I
Yeah.
break out a 1911 and I shoot it, and everybody turns around and goes, "Wow!"
Well, that's,
I enjoy that.
yeah.
That's a rush.
I had I had a 38 nickel plated special that was brand new to us in the box, and it's just like I was like, every time I put it in my hand, I'm like, this is, to me, this is like an old lady's gun to me. So when I went to a gun show, the guy sits there and he says, well, he says, hey, look, he says, I got this other gun over here. It's new. You want to check it out and see what it is? There was that 44, so he's sitting there saying, hey, I got this, he says, and I told him, I said, well, hey, how about we do some swapping? And he says, well, actually, he says, that the 44 is going to be a little bit more money, but in actuality, the 38 with what you got is actually going to cost a couple $100 more. So he says, look, he says, we'll go in there, throw in $100, and he says, you're good to go. Now, this was at the regular gun show here in Tampa.
Wow. So he honored without screwing you. He actually paid you $100 difference.
Yeah. So I went ahead,
That was nice.
I swapped them out. I would have gave it to him for free because I hated that 38. Never been shot, brand new. It's just like,
Wow.
that's not me. But,
Wow.
it's like now you go out and, you shoot that 44 and it's just like, I can stand against anybody down the gun range and, they're shooting a 9mm, a little 45. And it's just like, when this thing goes off, it turns heads.
Oh, absolutely. You will know when it's been fired.
And
There's no mistaking it.
Even the first time I fired, I was like, holy cow, it's like, damn, But, the good thing about it is I got the arms to hold the dang thing to where, the recoil.
Can you imagine one of my students, female in her 60s, trying to fire a firearm like that? It scared the holy hell out of her.
Oh, she'd drop it.
Yeah, she would.
Yep.
And see, so bigger isn't always better. It just
No.
when it falls down, it doesn't. Even the terminology is wrong in that sense.
Yeah.
It's the firearm has to suit the person,
That's it.
and you have to discover on your own
Yeah.
what works for you.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's all about, in technicality, guns are made for one purpose. Well, actually, two purposes. One to protect yourself, and the other is for food. So, if you're going to get a gun for hunting, then get a gun that's specifically designed for hunting. If you're going to get a gun for protecting yourself, well, I know there's a lot of people out there that sits there and says, well, I want to maim that person or something like that. And, and it's just strictly my opinion only. Uh, I can't see that factor. I've seen too many
Yeah.
times where you've seen it in courtrooms, you've seen it on TV, you've seen it in the newspapers. Somebody breaks into your house, you shoot them in the leg. The next thing you know, you were wrong for shooting them. This guy sues you,
Yeah.
and you pay for him the rest of your life.
Yeah. You'll lose
And
your house, your
yeah,
car,
and it's like,
everything. Yeah. No.
and I mean, I've been told by, various officials that sit there and said, hey, if the person breaks into your house, this is where your castle doctrine comes in, is like, your home is your castle. You've got to protect it at all costs. If it is deadly force that you have to do, then, you do deadly force. And it's just, my thing is this: if I'm going to buy a gun and I'm worried about somebody coming in my house, well, guess what? I'm going to make sure they're not going out of my house.
That's right. It's called
No.
stopping the threat.
Yep.
And honestly, in my personal opinion, if you're wanting to buy a gun to injure or maim, then perhaps you shouldn't own a firearm at
Yep.
all.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
no.
you don't understand what the purpose of stopping the threat is.
Yep.
And perhaps maybe something else would be better for you. 911, pepper spray,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, that's like I tell
And that
people.
doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. It just
Yep.
means that if you're going to shoot to maim, I'm sorry, they may take the gun away from you
Yep.
and finish you off.
Yep.
Because all you've done is escalated the situation.
You pissed them off.
That's right. You haven't
Yep.
stopped the threat.
Yeah,
You
'cause I
know?
mean, and it's just like, and even like you say, you need to go to the range, learn your gun, know what you can do with it and everything, because, I've always thought of different things. And it's like, I always figured out if somebody broke into your house, they had a gun, you had kids, they'd grab one of the kids and sit there and say, well, you're going to do this, this, and this, or I'm going to kill the kid.
What do
You
you
drop,
do?
you've got your gun in your hand, and, and it's like, if you drop the gun, you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, do you take that chance?
Yeah.
Or are you that confident of a shot to where that, can you take that shot? And, unfortunately, it's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
And, the only thing, I mean, I myself, I couldn't know what I would do in that position. I would like to think that, hey, I could do the old headshot routine and that he wouldn't pull the trigger and kill my kid. So, but it's just like, you don't know until you're put in that position.
That's
But,
right.
these
I
are
agree
things
with
that you have to think of.
Absolutely.
You
This
know?
is where home defense courses come into
Yep.
play. Discovering a safe room in your house,
Yep.
having a phone available in your
Yep.
safe room that is operating,
Yep.
because you need to call 911. Yes, I often say that 911 is usually late,
Yep.
but at least they're your witnesses because they're recording.
Yep. And,
You know?
because I mean, I've always been a big advocate to where, hey, we're not living in the day and age of the 50s where, you can leave your house unlocked, go down the street, come back 2 days later and nothing's touched,
Right.
and
I
it's
wished
just
it was
like,
like that, but
yeah,
it's not anymore.
no.
You're right.
You
I
know,
hear
so,
horror stories every day.
oh my God, and it's just like, you got to sit there, and if you've got kids, once they get to the age that they can understand, then you definitely need to sit there and train them in a way to where, hey, look, if you hear something bad, there's going to be a safe room. Get in there, you shut the door, no matter what, you shut that door.
That's
You
right.
get on that phone, you dial 911.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing to do is in that safe room, set up a separate line phone. Do not use the same one that you use in your
That's
house.
right. Not a landline.
Yeah.
Something
And,
smart to think about there.
And these are the kind of things that you can do. These safe rooms, they can be built. It could be a closet. It could be anything like that. I mean, my God, contractors can go in there and build it. They can put 1/4-inch steel around the thing and, just do whatever over top of them.
Mhm.
But you got to sit there. You got to train your kids, because effectively, if your kids are upstairs, you're downstairs, then the threat comes in through the bottom stairs, then, you can hit a button that alarms everything in the house. Boom. These kids automatically know, go hit that safe room, lock the door, get the phone immediately.
To
So,
me, it is
yeah.
as common as you
Yep.
should be teaching them about fire
Yep.
safety,
Yep.
or any other choking hazards or anything. It should
Yep.
be as common as that. It's not taboo. You know,
Yep.
it's very important to learn those things. Just the same as teaching a kid not to talk to strangers.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So,
it is. I mean, it's still crazy because, kids, unfortunately, they still do. And, it's just because peer pressure is a monster nowadays. And you've got everything from that. You've got the bullying effect. You've got, oh, well, little Johnny down the street's doing it, so he's cool, and I want to do it too. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? Next thing
Teach
you
your
know,
kids.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's just like, hey, be a parent, teach your kids the right way to do things with gun safety and also house safety as far as, be in a position of deadly threat. Because hey, it may sound outrageous, but I would rather have a family that was safe than a family that was dead that I regretted not telling them.
Yeah. I,
So,
I, I I really stand behind you 100% on that. I like
uh,
that statement. So I guess, unfortunately, I didn't get very far, but it's nothing that should ever be rushed anyway. So
no,
the rest of this is going to be continued for our next show, where we're going to talk about the importance of accuracy and muzzle velocity and things, choosing the right size firearm for yourself, and then holster carrying, how to carry concealed,
hmm,
firearm safety, and it just goes on and on and on. And unfortunately, I'll have to touch in on what the UN and what they're talking about on the gun ban, but it's something that you can easily Google. Just make sure you're reading not the hype, but the correct documentation.
yeah.
And wow, there's there's so much more that I wanted to cover, and I just never have enough time to do so. But yeah, so basically, do all of that. And then I wanted to thank our sponsors out there. And if you want to become a sponsor, please call Nolan Ray at Talk Wad Radio Network. And do you have anything else you want to say in final notes?
Yeah, other than that, hey, be careful, be safe, and don't be an idiot, or like the old sticker used to say, don't be a dick.
Dick.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you know what, Nolan's still busy. He might actually give us a few more minutes, which is pretty cool. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, that subject is too long to talk about.
Well,
What
actually,
I
what we ought to do is like next time we come in is like bring a couple guns and something that's like a small gun and a big gun and something like that, so that way you can do like a comparison sizing as far as what properly fits your hand and
Yeah, I
yeah,
really should do that. What I'll do is
yeah,
I'll bring some charts and things too as well, so that you
yeah,
can visually see what it is that I'm talking about. Usually
yeah.
when I teach my concealed weapons permit class, I teach it with a PowerPoint, hands-on training. Any good instructor, and we all know this as firearms instructors out there, when we took our training, they taught us TPI, which is total participant, uh, you know,
Interaction.
interaction, where
Yeah,
everybody is involved. Absolutely. So we learn by doing.
yep.
We don't learn so well by being talked at, and
Hmm.
so we learn by doing, and it's huge.
Yeah.
So next week we're going to cover a lot of that as well, and then I'm going to also do the breakdown of our Second Amendment and what it means.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to say, check this out too. When you Google it, I love this show, and I did ask Showtime for permission of it, and they unfortunately turned me down, which
Hmm.
I can understand because they're probably still making a whole lot of money on it. But they
No.
have this TV series out that's been out for a very, very, very long time. Penn and Teller,
Yeah.
and I love the humor behind it. And all you got to do is get on YouTube and type in Second Amendment, Penn and Teller's version of the Second Amendment. They couldn't make it more clearer, and they add humor to it. And I
Yep.
so badly wanted to put it on there, but now I just plug them that way, I guess. But
Yep.
they make it really simple and easy to understand what the point is that we're trying to get across on our Second Amendment and our rights. And yeah, we're facing some pretty serious issues here in the future about anti-gun. And the
Oh
UN,
yeah.
we've Hillary Clinton and a few other high-end officials have actually signed what is pretty much well going to be where they're going to try to attempt to confiscate firearms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so you've heard that in my previous shows as well. Pretty much, well, all that's going to leave left is revolvers if they decide not to take those two. So
Oh, they're gonna try.
yeah. So he is our best firearm sales agent, and that's why yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday, I sold 6 guns in 1 hour.
Oh, hey, let me tell
It
you
was
something.
shocking.
Yeah. Well, when
Yeah.
people, they start getting the news that they're going to figure out that hey, they better be buying their guns fast
Oh yeah,
because
we're
these
gonna
are
have an ammunition shortage again as
uh,
well.
well, because I
Yeah.
mean, this is a measure that's going to happen within the next 12 months. I mean, this ain't.
I think it's going to attempt to be a little quicker,
Oh
although
yeah.
some other people have said it's like the frog in the boiling water. How do you do it? Well, if you put the frog in the boiling water, of course he's going to jump out.
Yep.
So they slowly do it. They put the frog in the cold water, then they
And heat them
boil.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yep.
wow.
Because they can't do it in America, but they can do it as a UN ban.
Yeah. And,
So,
the thing is that what I love about Florida, and I'm not saying that it's not possible, but a private to private sale you can do. Just make sure you know who you're buying from.
yep.
But we all have that right. And I also recommend on
Run
another,
the serial numbers.
absolutely, you got to, because,
Yes.
but yeah, there's a couple of options out there in Florida. We are pretty much, well, one of the strongest states as far as concealed carry.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, at one point in time, there was a billboard entering the state of Florida that said, that we're a carry concealed state, and they
Yep.
had the Florida state, and it looked like a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are pretty strong here in Florida about it. We've come up for debate many a times also about open carry, but it gets shot down, so to speak, many times because they're scared it's going to scare the tourist away.
Yeah.
And this is due to lack of education and understanding
Yeah.
because Arizona and
Texas,
Iowa,
yeah, I think
Texas,
Texas too.
the open carry.
Yep.
And at one point in time, Kentucky was. I'm not 100% sure if
I don't
they
know if they
are
are not.
now, but I
So,
remember there was a time when we open carried out in Kentucky, and it was
yeah.
pretty cool. So every state's a little bit different. So when you're acquiring your CWP as well, and you choose to travel, which you're legal to do,
Yep.
know the laws in each state. Every state's a little bit different.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Where one state says yes, the other state may say no, and it may
Ah.
cost you 3 to 5 years.
Oh, maybe even more. Here, a fine example. In the state of Florida, stand your ground. I'm sure now everybody knows what stand your ground means. But in our neighboring state, Georgia, you have the duty to retreat.
Yep.
You have to try to or attempt to flee the situation before
Yep.
you defend yourself. So every state's a little different.
Yeah. So in other words, in Georgia, take 2 steps back, then shoot them.
Well, I don't advise that. All I can do is teach you firearm safeties out there, and then make sure that you have your a great lawyer.
Yep.
Make sure you have a good gunsmith. A few
Mm-hmm.
other people in your life, probably a good car mechanic and a doctor. But
Mm-hmm.
then on the top 10 there, a great lawyer and a great gunsmith.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to thank you people out there again. And we do need sponsors for our show and advertisers, and the prices are quite reasonable. So all you have to do is call Nolan Ray at talkwad.com. And the phone number to call in the studio is 727-493-2055. It looks like you lifted out like you know this number quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get a lot of guests on your show that call. So what's up for tonight's show?
I'm just going to pretty much throw it up in the air and whatever sticks on the table,
Any
I
particulars?
figured I'd sit there and try a little bit about Petraeus and hopefully a little bit about McCain.
Yeah.
Because I think we're getting ready to have a new kind of Watergate, and it should be really interesting to see what's going to happen with this Benghazi strip over there, and just to see what exactly is going on. So that probably within about the next 2 weeks, as far as Israel goes, I think all hell's fixing to break loose over there because they've already been firing.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. So we're all going to have to just tune in and find out what your show is going to be all about. I'm actually going to ding the bell to try to cue Nolan because I think
Ding ding.
he lost track of time. Are we done? He's pointing the thumbs up. We're done, guys. So
All
you
right.
all have a wonderful night out there, and thank
Cool.
you so much.
Yeah, and we'll catch you guys in 2 weeks. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving because next week we're eating turkey.
Oh, that's right. Happy tea.
Yep.
All righty.
So-
Have a great night.
Cool deal.
To follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march